Yeah, publish sounds like it's completed, right?
I don't know. They just updated the app, so
Uh,
I feel like an old man. I feel like my dad with an iPhone. I just want to make sure. As long as that red light on there is still recording, we're good.
oh, I see what it's doing. Okay.
As far as I know. Because the reason I want to put it on a live stream is because you get both the backups, and you can always re-download
Sure.
YouTube. We do Facebook just because we have more people over there, but I think Vimeo is going to be legit.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think they're doing a different model. They just bought this company that makes this thing.
The Mevo thing.
Yeah, it's called Livestream.
Okay.
And I guess it's corporate consolidation everywhere online. I mean, it's just like Google, like Alphabet.
Yeah.
You know, they're just going to before you get too big, they're going to buy you out.
Well, I always thought of Vimeo as like if I wanted to watch some show illegally and I couldn't find it on YouTube. That's what Vimeo
Really?
was to me. Yeah. I never really thought about it.
I thought it was more of the professional, the serious kind of YouTube.
Oh,
like,
sure, but
like
yeah,
if you're doing like educational things for your business, like I don't know, employee onboarding or something like that. Like I thought Vimeo was good for that. Or you really had like a unique I think
like
of
a documentary or something like that, something corny.
But I always feel like something in the woods with good cinematography.
Yeah. if your camera is a certain amount of money, you gotta upload that to Vimeo.
Yeah, you're definitely nothing in lower than 1080p.
Yeah, because it preserves a lot of the quality. Then
yeah,
I see.
I felt like that was a big selling point in the beginning, and then they realized most people were looking at the stuff on their phones.
Right, exactly.
That goes about
There's only so many pixels.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I think the Android stuff goes to 1080 anyway.
Yeah.
Well, it's your podcast. Now I've hijacked
sure.
it.
No, I'm just using your stuff, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this. So I thought we'd talk about because we've had a lot of car conversations about.
I'm gonna keep a notepad.
Yeah, sure.
Because there's always fun stuff that comes up in a podcast, and then I forget it, and then I never look it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I thought we always have conversations about the business of science and how it compares to the sort of corporate world, and because we talk a lot about grant writing and stuff like that, and I thought it would be fun to talk about the parallels and go into that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What did we talk about last time? I was trying to think this morning. I was like, we talked about something really interesting last time I saw you in person, I think, and you were at our house. It was almost like Groundhog's Day because you were at our house.
Meaning yesterday?
Saturday.
Yeah.
Well, Saturday really, but yesterday too.
Yeah,
as well. But it's one of those things where I was like, what did we talk about? Because I remember you told me about your roast before you left.
Uh-huh.
And you told me all the good jokes. And then we talked about some side conversation about science. And it was business science, but I can't.
That was this weekend?
No. This was a year ago.
Oh, okay. I was like,
before you moved out of Tampa.
Okay, when Trip was born.
Yeah.
I see.
Because when you came over, it was almost. I had like a deja vu almost Saturday.
Because it was like literally just a new baby.
Yeah, I think so. And I haven't slept from the new baby.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure it'll pop up.
Well, I mean, anything in particular with business and science, I feel like. I don't know. I've been listening to a lot of science stuff that's, it feels like you can pay for whatever results you want. I mean, that's been going on forever.
Yeah, so to a certain extent, it's like the more money you have, the more experiments, like the higher experiments you can do, like the higher level experiments you can do. And then at a certain point, you can start to do a brute force sort of thing with when that money sort of scales up.
Right.
And so it becomes a thing of the rich sort of getting richer, not only in terms of getting grants, but also in terms of getting results.
The weird thing is, what I was thinking about was, I feel like you're gonna get a bunch of scientists that are disruptors, almost like Elon Musk, right? Because he's not a scientist necessarily; he's an engineer, if he's anything, right?
Yeah.
Whether that's a digital engineer or like a physical, actual on the ground engineer, but I feel like the problem with a lot of research is you basically have a board of directors, whether that's an actual board of directors or academia, which is a lot of it.
Yeah, so I could talk about the academic side of things.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, so when you write a grant, and I'm sure it's the same way with you, is that you are writing to an expected result, and then at a certain point you can start to do a brute force sort of thing with when that money sort of scales up. And so it becomes a thing of the rich sort of getting richer, not only in terms of getting results, but also in terms of getting results. I think the weird thing is, what I was thinking about was, I feel like you're gonna get a bunch of scientists that are disruptors, almost like Elon Musk, right? Because he's not a scientist necessarily; he's an engineer, if he's anything, right? Yeah.
So
and you sort of have this expectation how things will go.
Objective, yeah.
Right.
Your mission.
Right, exactly. But you have to say, okay, we're going to do these experiments and we're going to expect these results, and this is going to have this sort of impact. And you can write some, okay, if it goes some other way, then we'll plan for this. But these are really relatively small part of a grant compared to this vision that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And then so say if your results take you in another direction, and if you're clever and willing to go with the flow, then you can write a new grant based on this new direction. But then your funding agency is like, oh, what happened to all that stuff?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
well, it's like a business plan.
Sure.
To me, you just essentially, so a business plan works like this. You have a executive summary. It's a one-pager in the beginning.
yeah, we have a specific aims page.
You have a you have a mission statement, right?
Yeah.
And it's always one sentence. And my teacher always taught me to do it. It says to be this, to be the scientific research for this kind of oncology or whatever it is, to be the best nerd agency, small business consulting firm, kind of hybrid. And then you have your vision. Then you have what the bigger thing you want to do. We want to bring customer service to the digital services age. We feel like there's a lot of people who have been screwed by people doing what we're doing here. But the grant is a similar thing. You want to change the world in a sense most of the time. The ego's still there. That's what's really funny. Of like,
scientists are like the most egotistical.
We think of
science.
I'm getting I'm trying to rechange my brain on how I think about scientists.
I must have done something for that.
That one's even harder because I talk about that because my friends they'll think of you as whatever you hang out with them as.
Yeah. Fair.
So I have friends that are clients and they think I'm like, lighten up, and I'm like, this is your business. I'm taking this serious.
Right.
We're gonna hammer this in. We're gonna war room this out.
Right.
But like same with that. I don't think of you as a scientist. I know you know your shit, and I know we talk about it, but
right.
It's not like direct association.
Sure.
And I don't think. I think that's just us. Most people don't know. Kind of what a scientist really is now.
I was thinking about this on the walk over, which is that like I used to be in my head a lot about that, where I'd be like, okay, I have this science side of me and this comedian side of me, and I used to really not like for the comedian like that I hung out with to know like really what because I was sort of like, I don't know if embarrassed is the right word, but I didn't want them to think of me differently. Yeah, you know what I mean. And the same thing with the scientist side of things. I definitely felt like this, where I got a lot less respect because like, okay, I would go be doing shows or whatever, but it's like I'm not putting any less work in than you. It's like you go out drinking and I'm going out. It's like, how is that any different? You know what I mean?
Well, can I put a good spin on it for you?
Sure.
If you ever need to get out of that, because I use it to my advantage now.
Yeah.
So I tell everybody, whatever you think about a comedian, I'm probably not that. Because you're gonna think whoever your favorite comic is, you're gonna go, why aren't you like that guy? So I go stop that kind of bias right now, and then I say like so whatever you know about stand up and how to write jokes and how to do it, it's probably wrong.
Almost certainly, yeah.
And I'm trying not to be a dick, but there's a point to it, and it's being a small business consultant, digital strategist, whatever my title is, because you carry a lot of hats. You're basically looking, you're observing a lot of things. I'm good at pattern recognition. I'm good at observing human behavior, like how people really act and how they say they act. I think is a big kind of disjointed thing. A lot of people don't have that self
awareness.
Awareness, yeah. I was trying to think of a better word.
But placeholder.
It's too early in the morning.
Sure.
But it's also that thing. It's hard to turn off. Like it's hard to turn off your brain to not kind of get like mildly obsessed with stuff.
Sure.
I read about CRISPR or hear about it on what's the, God damn it.
I'm about to say
NPR. Whatever.
All Things Considered or something like that.
One of the bigger podcasts. Yeah. What does that thing say? Slow internet. You're slow internet.
Yeah, you tell it.
So, you got a second recording going?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. You might want to put it in the middle.
Yes, that makes sense.
But it's like I say I can't turn it off. Like you walk into a room, any room, it's not comedy wise, but comedy wise especially, you feel like Jason Bourne a bit because you notice like 5 things no one else really does.
Yeah.
And, you probably just push it down, but part of that helps in the whole process of what you're doing professionally.
Oh, no, certainly I use those skills.
Right.
I mean, maybe not in an as obvious a way as you were saying.
Right.
But, I mean, definitely, if you even think about how to craft a joke and how you have to flip things around and you may have to,
right.
you know.
Contrarian logic.
Right. And this is the same sort of thing you have to think about with experiments and how to think about.
A lot of trial and error.
Right. Sure.
And when you were talking about the grant writing, I was like, maybe we can get a science theme going for our marketing when we do a marketing kind of proposal. Because my big thing is I hate people that say we're going to get this amount of leads or this amount of conversions, or we're going to get you this amount of results because you paid us X amount. There's way too many variables.
Yeah, it's not a real thing. Yeah.
And
assess.
And I can't. For us, morally, I think, our business would be a lot better probably.
What if you did that?
Yeah, but I feel like I couldn't sleep at night. I mean, even less than now. But if we're doing some stuff like that, I don't know if that's kind of something in the science world.
So you have to say, I mean, with a grant, you definitely have to say the things you expect. But I mean, all you can really say for sure is how you're going to do it and the level of quality you're going to do it at. And say, we think by doing it at this level of quality and this sort of technique that we're going to get these results.
Quality, cost, delivery. Bam.
We
were talking about this right before we started.
Yeah.
I'm kind of getting obsessed with that because in order for us to scale up, and I don't know if there's a parallel for your world with this, but in order for us to scale, we got to figure out how to be super lean all the time. And it's
what do you mean? Just
so
being efficient with how
lean efficiencies, lean productivity. For instance, very small thing. We do a lot of branding for what we call immature businesses under 3 years old.
Okay.
Immature after the band or the R&B group Immature. That's a really poor joke for anybody listening. I'm full of dad jokes, so
yeah,
all day, son. But any business that's under 3 years, we call kind of immature because we're in that zone too. We do a lot of branding, and that it's really hard to articulate to get client feedback, right? So you're trying to extract out of their brain what they want.
And they probably don't even know what they want.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So we've been working on this form. It's almost like a psychology test, but it's almost to triangulate what they're trying to tell us. So it's like some of these
kind
things,
of like a personality quiz, but for like
a little bit,
small businesses.
A little bit. I throw in a lot of red herring things, like questions in there that don't even make sense.
Yeah.
So
just to
keep them like even, and then there's where I want them is the real meat is, there's certain spots where you pick it, and so it's one of those things where some of job interview questions go like, if you were an animal, what kind of animal would you be, right? And that sounds like a silly hippie question,
which it is.
It is, but it's going to give you like a little bit of boundary and go, okay, this guy thinks he's kind of a lion, but he doesn't act that way. So you're trying to put all these things together, but to be lean, we've made this more of an online form. If we can't do a face-to-face meeting, which I prefer, or a video call, sometimes it's just tough. Like we have 3 clients right now; they're international, so it's one's in Europe, one's in all over the place in like Indonesia, I want to say, right now. So it's like
that's really good awareness of your clients.
Well, no, I don't know. They just hop around.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so I'd tell you. Well, I can't. I can't tell you some of them because of non-disclosure. But it's one of those things where it ships in the night. So we have to send. We send a lot of video and all this stuff to be efficient. Here's an update. Here's what's going on. And now we've made that branding like an online form, and then we can take all the data that they put in and route it correctly. So when we do an intake form, if they sign, or if this is after they sign, that take their email from that form, put it into MailChimp for our marketing purposes, put it into our CRM system, put it into Pipedrive, which is our CRM for sales.
Okay.
So
I'm not sure I'm fully.
So you have like a
on board with
funnel.
Yeah.
And if you're writing grants, there's a funnel. There's a lot of marketing funnels, sales funnels, and everything. So if you're writing grants, you might write 10 grants, right? So before that, you're going to look at the ones you can get to, right?
Yeah.
So let's call that the widest layer of the
Okay.
funnel. And I'm using visual with my hands, but I'm going to try to articulate it for the audio. So take a beer bong at the top.
This is Auburn Days.
Right. Yeah. Let's speak in terms I got.
We understand. Yeah.
I like lowest common denominator stuff. So, so take a beer bong, and at the top of the beer bong, you have all the grants that you might be able to write for. Right.
Okay.
About 1 inch lower, you've got the 10 grants. You go, we're gonna write for those. You submit those 10, and then another inch lower on that beer bong. We're not quite to that little rubber hose yet, but right before it hits that spout, you get 5 callbacks for that grant.
Okay.
Out of those 5 callbacks, 1 grant goes through. It's a funnel.
Sure.
And so I forget why I was on this point, but that's how all marketing and sales is. And employment, if you're hiring someone, you have a funnel. Same thing.
Yeah.
Sure. You put something on ZipRecruiter, thousands of people are going to get there. Are going to submit, and you're only taking one person, you know?
Yeah. I like this idea of, because I've been thinking about this a lot. So this idea of leanness, and especially when you're a growing company or lab or whatever. So, because that's what I'm thinking about now is, okay, if I open a lab, how do I want to do that? And so basically you'll go into a university, you'll have some sort of startup money that they'll give you, and they'll say, it's pretty ruthless nowadays. Now it's like, okay, you have to get some grants and publish some papers in the next few years. Otherwise, that promotion isn't looking so good, right?
So, all right, go ahead. I'm gonna write my question down.
Yeah. Okay. So the idea is basically you want to get as many papers as possible so you can get as many grants as possible. But how do you get as many papers as possible? You go for the safe, sort of easy, quick sort of hits, and you just try and knock that out, right? And so that's the sort of smart way to do it. But a guy who came up in my current lab right now, he kind of did the opposite. So he went huge risk, and probably there's 10 other guys who did exactly what he did and failed. But he went huge risk. He went for the structure. So basically, protein structures can be they're very high risk reward. You can easily not get one and spend 5-10 years doing it.
Protein?
So like a molecule in the cell. Yeah.
Okay.
So the biomolecules that make the cells work.
Okay. All right, I'm with you.
Yeah. So
I didn't know if you said pro team,
protein. Yeah,
like a professional football team.
No, that's
sorry.
No. So you can
look. I'm an old man. I'm the oldest 33-year-old. You know. All right. Jerry Maguire quotes aside. Let's.
So you can really spend a lot of time on this sort of thing and utterly fail, right? And so basically he threw all of his resources into this project. He said, I'm going to get this, right? And basically ended up doing it. And so it's one of those things, if you get a structure to this level of challenge, then it's going to be a Nature Science Cell paper. These are our highest profile journals. These are the sort of, it's like Jordan's or something like that. You know, it's like, you can see that the name of that journal and just know that this is high quality, high impact research.
Okay.
Right? And so he got that, and so it worked out for him. But you can easily imagine there's 10 other guys who tried a similar high risk, high reward approach who failed and then ended up going out of academia. And
this is your buddy?
I met him, but not. Yeah.
But you heard the story that worked, right?
Right. No, exactly. You don't hear the stories that don't work.
Right. It's same with I'm sure a lot of accolades that go on in your community. Like it's the iceberg stuff.
I got a great story that didn't work.
Go for it.
So there's this guy, Doug Prasher. So he noticed in I guess is some jellyfish that there's something glowing in there. Right. And so the question is, what is it that's glowing in there? And so he's just sort of interested in basic biology, stuff like that. And most people probably thought it was just some I don't know, some small molecule, some they're making some metabolite, whatever. It turned out to be this protein called green fluorescent protein.
Okay.
Right. So he figured out the gene, but then ran out of money, and the project died. Right. So but then he sent the materials out to a few other people, and so the reason why a fluorescent protein is so much more interesting than a fluorescent molecule is that you can connect the protein to another protein, make a fusion protein, and now you could track where the original protein is going in cells.
Okay.
And so now you have this sort of visual way of tracking molecules in the cell.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
So
I have to close my eyes to visualize stuff sometimes.
So he sent these genes out. He sent his information out to some other people. He crashed. His lab crashed and burned. And those 3 guys pushed it forward, got the major results. They ended up winning the Nobel Prize for green fluorescent protein.
Huh.
Meanwhile, this guy was driving. He was working for a car dealership, driving around.
What?
Yeah, he fell that fast. I think he was driving around. You know, when you're doing like rental cars or whatever, you shuttle people around for the rental cars or whatever.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
What? Well, because y'all's stuff is so specific, it's not like, you can get a couple rocket scientists to do some. Like I worked at a mutual fund company. My boss won a Nobel Prize, actually. Look up Fama in French, passive investing theory. Basically, they're like work with the markets, don't work against them. But by the time I got there in 06, 07, in the Santa Monica office, there was they just hired a guy that was a rocket scientist that they wanted him to apply, his brain to what they're doing. But I don't think there's a lot of like 1-for-1 stuff y'all can do other than academia, And I think one of the things I was thinking when you were throwing that scenario from the guy that did a very risky kind of strategy was, why go the academia route? I feel like that I know it's probably programmed in you. Like
Sure.
When people start their own small business, the first thing they think is they got to get an SBA loan, or like some kind of loan.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of options out there as far as like getting credit lines, or there's a lot of online options that are a lot cheaper than a lot of these big banks now. And so like I think Fundbox and stuff like that, but
I see where you're going. So this is something that's becoming especially relevant in the last few years. About why academia and why is this?
So there's money. There's so much money there.
Not really.
Resources.
So part of what the issue is that the way that PhD programs are built nowadays is towards academia. You're learning a skill set that is very specific for academia. If you want to get into industry, then you gotta work through the trenches in industry for a little bit, or work in a lab that is maybe industry focused, But
I'm taking the mic out.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they're trying to train people to become academic scientists.
Right. Keep you in their machine.
The issue is that there's not enough jobs for academic scientists.
Yep.
So part of it is the system of tenure. So you got these old guys who are just they're not doing anything productive. They're just sitting in chairs. And
you see it on a micro level at your local elementary, high school.
Sure. So just waiting for people to. Part of it is budget cuts. Part of it is
same.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure I'm even forgetting about some other reasons. But yeah. So then there are several other options that people do nowadays for academia. So instead of academia, so one interesting thing. So industry is the sort of common automatic thing that people do. So basically you go work for a big pharma company like Pfizer or whatever. You maybe work as a lab tech or a research scientist or whatever. You're basically doing the technical things, but you're really not thinking to the same level that you were in academia. But you're making way more money. You have 9 to 5, you have benefits, there's a lot of pros to that.
Yeah, that's tough too.
But yeah, and that
I'll touch on that when you're done.
But I mean, probably what I would think, it's tough for me to reconcile because you got into science as an intellectual pursuit, and then you become a set of hands, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh. I gotta close that. I hope we're still recording. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're recording.
Still good. Still good. So that's then there's all sorts of unorthodox jobs popping up because you have this glut of PhDs who aren't able to get into academia just because the sheer numbers are against them. So
yeah, and I think it's tough because I think I think if I were you and you do have, I think you should take just basic business classes anyway.
Yeah.
Because it's so applicable for a lot of things. But, there's it's good to be a hybrid. It's good to walk in both worlds too, because at any point, if let's say you did have ambitions to be, I don't know, what is it called? Head of a lab or director?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Executive director?
Professor, you could be, yeah.
But I feel like you can move more, if you figure out how to find the right company that is I think of Gary Vaynerchuk or whatever, VanderMedia.
Mm-hmm.
Gary V. He's like a serial entrepreneur, they call it. And I like listening to his stuff because he's just getting fired up. No one's going to, he'll do these videos every day, just go pick yourself up, go get to work.
Oh, very motivational,
Well, he moved into that area eventually, the last 5 years, but he's a younger guy too compared to the other entrepreneurs out there.
Sure.
But I would find someone like him that you're in a public sector when you're in academia pretty much, and if it's a private school, it still acts like a public,
Well, we're operating on public money.
Right, which is to me is the same thing with business. Why is government so slow and business gets things done quicker? The incentives, right?
Yeah.
And there's not as much lobbying. If you're shitty, you get cut. And I'm not going to go into Peter, Peter Schaefer, free market, capital markets are the best.
Yeah.
But I do lean more that way, and I feel like I would try to find someone who wants to have a side to their conglomerate, and I feel like you can reach them now. You used to not be able to. I feel like if you really wanted to reach these companies that are doing really well, like Gary V.
Okay.
And you had an idea, I want you to be y'all's company is the VC on this lab, and here's what it might be able to do in a business world.
Yeah.
And it has an exit plan when you start to sell it.
So several labs are able to take in money and bridge that world quite effectively. And a lot of it depends on, because they do sort of, a lot of these big pharma companies do outsource certain things to academic labs, because there are things that can be accomplished by academic labs which would be difficult in the research setting of a company. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm trying not to puke. I'm so tired and sick right now. I've
All
got
right.
Pedialyte in front of me.
This is you're recovering from
Dude.
recovering from a hangover, but dad hangover.
Dude, it sucks. It's I didn't even drink.
That's what I'm saying.
I haven't had anything to drink in November. I don't know if you timed are these time stamped? When does this come out?
When did this come out? When I wanted to.
Any ballpark idea?
Probably the next month or so.
Okay. Well, we'll do a Swapcast. We'll throw it on our Sweat Equity one, and
yeah,
so people can migrate over there. But
sure.
I think I might have to go lay down, honestly.
Yeah, you think you're good?
You can keep all this audio in too.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I've been struggling not to puke the whole time you've been here.
Hey, you sold it well.
Well, my brain can get sidetracked for a little bit, but not for too long.
I think we had a good 40 minutes though, right?
I think so.
So
Well,
I'm pretty happy with that. If you want to,
I hope we're still recording. Jesus Christ. Okay. Yeah, I think we're still good. Anything? I'm trying to think of anything else. I would say maybe you add an appendage onto this when you record an intro or whatever. But
yeah,
I would look up some labs and just like that funnel stuff, right? You start looking now. like when this firm came about, I'd been thinking about it for years before we started this thing.
Sure.
Because Blade syndrome, you and I were hybrids, and David Weingarten and Joe Riga, and we cared about our career,
Right.
too. It's not just a day job kind of thing,
Right.
but we also cared about stand up and logic, strategy, and applying it to the new school digital online side, which I think that gives us a unique value prop that no one has.
Sure.
For you, it might be a thing where you might be able to go, okay, I know how to do an incubator of a bunch of people that are doing labs, be the head of that.
Right.
Because that's a different animal. But, that's that. How do you stay lean? Because all companies, if companies put money into you, they're going to want to like go, are you Six Sigma? Do you have any of that stuff? Like these operations kind of accreditations?
Yeah.
I don't know how that works in y'all's world, but I'm sure there's a fat to cut all the time.
Sure.
And it's all about, all right, if I gave you $1 million, $1 billion for a lab, it's not a good thing just to hire on people that are good names in your community or get a bunch of equipment that's good. I think part of the thing that's great about what we're doing here is we've had no working capital since we started, which sucks and stresses me out, and I look beleaguered. But at the same time, necessity breeds innovation. So when you're really back against the wall, you figure out how to do all these efficient things and you figure out, honestly, a new level personally where you go, like every about 4 or 5 months, I hit an area where I'm like, wow, I thought I was working hard then. Now, like right now, I'm at an area where I'm like, I've been sleeping like 3 hours a night, and like trying to work whenever I have a free moment.
This is a cry for help.
No. Well, we're working on it. I'm working on more structure just because it's not. I can't go at this clip for that much longer. But it's one of those things where no, I did therapy the other day. Yeah.
First time?
Yeah, I wanted to do it proactively, but my wife recommended it. Get your shit together kind of thing. And I was
preventative maintenance on a car or something. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it doesn't bother me that much. I think it's weird if I talk to my family about it, but
you can,
because they're kind of old school in that way. But I bet if I told them, they'd be fine. But I don't really want to talk to them about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, well, I'm not doing stand up right now actively, and so that was halfway therapeutic. It was cathartic, I'd say, and so. I was down for it, but then I got more stressed out getting there and getting back to pick up our kid at daycare.
Okay.
I was like, God, this is the worst. So like I felt comfortable talking to this therapist for an hour and a half. And then I was like, what time is it? He's like, it's 4:45. I was like, shit. Ah. And he was like, oh, did you have to go? I was like, Doc, I told you. I was like yelling at him. I was like, Doc, I told you. I had to go. You let me go, man. And then I was like, man, I've never been like that weird.
He probably asked one question and then you just went.
Oh yeah. I do that even if I'm mentally everywhere. Like I'm fine. I don't know. I gotta get that under control because that is. I was. I thought I was gonna barf and now I don't.
Yeah, no, you're back on it. You're back.
I was talking to my dad at lunch about that means we're doing a good job on a branding message.
Yeah, sure.
Marketing message. And he still doesn't get it. But
you'll get there.
But he was like, you don't need to you're giving too much technical stuff that you don't need in there. And I'm like, and this will relate to y'all's world.
Sure.
I think that you're young too for your industry, I'm sure.
Yeah,
so and you're probably more advanced than a lot of the guys that are long in the tooth. I feel like I wouldn't say I'm an expert, the best at any of the stuff we're doing. But I think as an aggregate, we're doing something that's totally unique and different. But I'd say I have to throw in, I feel like I always have to prove that I know what I'm talking about.
Oh, sure.
And it sounds it sounds like I have Asperger's or like, like I'm on the spectrum.
Yeah. But I mean, isn't there a certain
there's a lot of people who've been ripped off. That's why I feel like I have to say I'm not
drop technical terms or whatever. You mean
Yeah,
like,
but I should wait for people to ask.
right.
You know,
And
'cause
there is a sort of
it overwhelms everybody.
yeah, there is a sort of quiet knowledge and confidence that comes with just keeping it in the simple terms at the same time, right?
Yeah, well, no, and on a sales level, you probably close a lot better that way.
Yeah.
You know, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. There's a weird thing. It's like all right. It's like scientific research papers. I can't read them.
No.
Right. And so a lot of people can't read SEO or pay-per-click ad information or any of that either. It's its own jargon, just like legal.
Sure.
Is its own that's math to me. That's legal documents are just like a math problem. It really is. It's it's English, but we don't use any of those words herein.
Sure.
So,
but I mean, you probably have this too, where it's like it's all training. So it's like, I mean, even though I'm a scientist, like there's only a certain subset that I can just go in and read and not have to, you know what I mean? And that's a very sort of small percentage. Everything else.
Where's the abstract?
Right. Everything else is that like I have to, actually sit and focus and actually, maybe there's some words I have to look up, but I know how to systematically go through it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's the same way with you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I can read reports and a lot of that and look up KPI stuff and too many acronyms, I feel like. Seriously. I feel like most people don't understand finance because there's too many acronyms.
Yeah.
That's been my theory
That's
for a while, since the crash of 08, 09. What was I going to say? Yeah, I think there's did you ever look up that thing, Alan
Alda.
Yeah.
I was just talking about this with my boss. Yeah.
Okay. And I thought it was enough to make me want to send it to you. But I do feel like communication in your world is like the way he was talking about it, I was like, I didn't want to buy it because I'm always skeptical of actors at first anyway, if I hear them in an interview.
Sure.
And I'm like, all right,
that's probably a good instinct.
I give him 10 minutes, yeah, especially now.
Right.
We're doing this mid-November when a lot of stuff's breaking out, but
right.
it's the thing of like, yeah, but this guy's old school. This guy seems very smart. I feel like the guys back in the day that make it this far. I feel like you're a pretty smart guy.
Right.
Plus, I used to watch MASH back in the day.
That's the real reason, huh?
I had to. My mom watched it. Reruns of MASH all the time. As a 5-year-old. It's a pretty dark comedy if you really look at it. Or dramedy? Anyway.
So
there's a huge gap between, and I see it in our world, there's a huge communication gap, right?
Yeah.
And I think what he's trying to do is figure out how to coach up a lot of people to be able to speak about this stuff.
Yeah, and I think the science world is especially in that sort of rut right now. So, but
in an ego way too. They want to prove it in the technical spots. So it's like stand up. You want to hit the crowd, but you want to hit the comedians in the back.
Right. So yeah, so on one hand, it's like okay, it is probably an ego thing where it's like you don't want to dumb down what you do. But at the same time, there are ways to explain it in layman's terms without dumbing it down.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's a huge...
Metaphors are the cheat code and stand up.
Sure, yeah. No, that's a huge problem we're having because, especially with, of course, politicians don't want to give funding to something they don't understand.
Right.
So that's one aspect of it.
And then they make bills that people don't understand, but they do.
That's the other aspect is okay. You see, I mean, if you've been on Facebook in the last 5 years, you can see these people like reposting like some sort of
onion stories.
Yeah, sort of fake science, sort of just strange thing. And that's just a simple thing of okay. That I've been thinking about this a lot. So okay, this whole I have two examples. I'll just give one, but the flat Earth theory, right? So, I can't get mad at flat earthers.
Okay.
So
I'll ride with you on it.
So the logic being is that okay, I can't all I know is that there's a picture. I know the Earth is round, but the reason I know the Earth is round is because I know scientists who know more about this stuff say that the Earth is round, and I know what it takes.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But they don't have that perspective.
Okay.
Meaning they have not been raised to trust scientists.
People
who don't believe in the flat Earth, right?
Well, the flat Earth is tougher. I'm with you on that in the sense that they're like, hey, this fossil's 3 billion years old, and you're like, what? And it's like, well, the Earth was created 6 billion years ago, and you're like, I don't know if those are the numbers. But it's like that just sounds like imaginary land to me. Like I have no idea.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. And then the science their books instead of science books are things like the Bible and stuff like that. So it's like this is no, but I mean seriously.
Yeah. No.
This is where they're getting their facts.
Well, which in the Bible also was translated by.
But I can totally sympathize when you're
we've
raised
always
on
been,
this from birth.
We've always been in the fake news era, if you think about it, from
exactly.
the Bible.
Yeah, yeah. So if you're raised on this from birth, how can you be mad? All you can do is just say, okay, I'm coming from a different standpoint, and then try and walk them through what got you to that standpoint.
You have sympathy, I think, for him.
Maybe.
Not empathy.
Yeah.
Because I think it's like a racist, right?
I'm a racist.
Someone. Okay.
Well, kind of.
That's a whole different podcast.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
If you have a friend that is racist, right, or an acquaintance or whatever, you meet someone, that's how they were raised. You know, they don't know any better.
Right.
So, but it doesn't make me go, I'm cool with him.
No, sure. No, that's exactly it. So I think
I feel sympathy. I feel bad for him.
So I think the duty is on scientists is to really go to a down-to-earth sort of grassroots approach and think and try and so because these guys, like these public scientists will just like shame these people. It's like, no, like walking them through it. There's a way to do it.
You can do it.
I can do it.
Oh, I mean, this podcast might be part of that.
That's partly what I'm thinking.
Yeah. The communication, there's a duality of all that, right? I think about duality a lot, and I think when I figured out I have like knee-jerk contrarian logic, like a few years ago, then it kind of clicked into place why I think of a lot of things in duality terms, right?
Okay. So
we need a simple message, yet it needs to be technical when it needs to be, kind of thing, right? So I always talk about what are the hardest things in the branding world for us is logo, right?
Okay.
It's like pressurizing so many things, and if you get involved in the process, it's really tough because it's like, depending on how many people you have or just the one person you're working with, they don't know what they want, but also it needs to be so simple, but also express so many different things.
Sure.
So the best logos do that. Apple's logo is great, right?
I quite like your logo, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it has a meaning to it. So the TocoWorks tribe, the Indian tribe, was in the Tampa Bay area, and so our company's called TocoWorks Consulting. And they named Tampa. So it means sticks of fire in their language. And so I think
this is the unofficial mayor of Tampa.
I think the story goes. The story goes that in their language of Calusa. So if you see in some local Calusa brewing, Calusa printing, that's what that's a reference to. And then the Sticks of Fire, I think, is like a fan club for the Lightning.
Yeah. That's right.
And I think
I didn't realize that.
Lightning hit. I think that's the story.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I like when people ask that, it has sticking power because it has a little story behind it. And I thought that would be a cool name for a company when I was like 13. I saw it on a puzzle about Tampa or Florida or something like that. So
awesome.
Yeah, I have that weird memory where I can remember like terrible 80s movies. Like no one remembers a scene that I can remember like a scene of just one of the guys.
This probably just goes back to the Asperger's part.
Maybe. I mean, my wife thinks I'm on the spectrum of sorts, but a slogan, tagline, those are really hard, right? Copy.
Sure.
It's always tough, but because you're trying to squeeze this thing down to its bare minimum, no fat.
Yeah.
Lean, efficiencies, all that stuff. And it's no different, in a lot of different. I forget where we were going with this. Oh, with communication.
Sure.
All right. So there's the duality of figuring out how do you explain to a flat earther that they're wrong, right? But with
respect,
being simple.
Yeah.
In the beginning, and then when you want to break it down,
yeah,
we can go get down that alley. So I think
I think
just go stand on a tall building.
Right.
Go look at the horizon.
Right. So, and I think part of it is that, so starting simple and then steadily getting more complex, because I don't automatically think of all these people as dumb people.
Right.
Right. It's just a matter of perspective. But I also think it's the idea of respect, and we're saying, okay, if you just say you're dumb because you don't believe this, they're going to reject whatever you say after that.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't win.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. If you come in not open-minded.
And I think that is the root of every sort of major issue in terms of science, public science, so things like vaccines causing autism. I think global warming. I think that
Right.
I think all these are the base of that.
Yeah.
And I think we have to, as scientists, have to take that upon ourselves to push that agenda.
I wonder if you could make a media site, that does, you actually cultivate good stories. Like, I think about that a lot in politics, right? I think it would be awesome to have like a Rotten Tomatoes of 100 writers, or trusted or very transparent.
Okay.
Maybe you get such a good mix of political lean that there's a book called Wisdom of Crowds. So, it's James Sarowicki, I think is his name, and it's kind of about like having sample sizes helps figure out a better data point, I guess.
Yeah.
Real fun read at the beach. But
Okay.
this is when I was at the mutual fund company. He came to our business or our company and spoke, and I was like, I need to get into this if I'm going to be here for a little bit. And so basically, it's like if you could have this kind of almost PolitiFact kind of had it for a minute.
Yeah.
And then
I remember that.
I don't know what happened to it, but the idea is there. It's like get a consortium that's transparent online. That, all right, here's a news story, and then validate it with some kind of score or something. I don't know.
I had this, and this is something that's still in my head, but basically it was almost exactly that, because the whole thing that I try and be honest about is, okay, I am a scientist, but like I don't know everything, and really I don't know much, and that's part of becoming a good scientist. I feel like. So
know what you don't know.
Right. And so, but what I do have is that I know people who know about, like, if I needed to tell you about if you ask me any question about science, I'd be like, okay, if you give me enough time, I could probably figure it out, but I can call a guy and they can explain it too. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I always thought about that. So like, okay, starting something where sort of very reactionary, something comes out in the news, and then bam, I say, okay, this is your wheelhouse, and then.
And you'll actually gain we call it a freelancer Rolodex here.
Yeah.
For work wise, but I also thought a lot of our value when we started this agency firm, whatever we're called, is being a connector.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I proactively do that.
Yeah.
And having a podcast, Sweat Equity, on iTunes, laughable, whatever.
Hashtag.
Is the thing of like, it gave me a reason to reach out to people I never would have and talk to them for an hour.
Yeah.
But now I have, I'm trying to get this Facebook ad expert. She's awesome. I think she's in like New Zealand, but I found her page because she advertised on Facebook. And I'm a big Facebook advertiser, but I can't keep up with everything. So she's a good sentinel to go. I don't have to go look at ad week of what's going on, week to week. She puts out her own little mini podcast. Here are the updates this week for Facebook ads. And I'm trying to get her on because I just think it's interesting because she's on top of her shit. But it's like, all right, I am very good at that area. I'm proficient. I can get expert level again if I had to, but I know enough. I can do most campaigns on my own if I have to, and that's what you need as a manager. You need to be able to do everything if you have to. But she's the person we're trying to get on the podcast because she knows
Right.
the math. She
Right.
knows what a lead costs for real estate agents.
Yeah. Why
$27.
remake the wheel? Yeah.
I think it's $27 per good lead for a realtor. That's pretty interesting, I think. For me, it is. All right. I'm meandering. It's I've
You feeling good?
yeah, I got to roll.
I think we can break this up into 2.
You do whatever,
I'll
man.
feel it out. We'll see
Yeah.
what happens.
But give me a heads up.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, dude.
All right, great talking to you all.
See ya.
Thanks.
Mm.